infrastructure where the financial center sits. Because institutions are made up of people. People want to live in nice houses. They want to have entertainment. They want to have infrastructure in terms of roads. They want to have good schools. They want to have good hospitals. They want to have good airports. If you're building a very big financial center that's interconnected, you want to have an airport. So all of these things you have to look at. Do you have houses? So this is why you have both Maria Island and you have Reem Island right next to it, where you have lots of buildings. Because the initial plan was that you would provide a place for them to live as well. This is why Canary Wharf is the way that it is. This is why you have a mall underneath. So we have to remember that it's populated by people. And obviously the taxation.
And Mauritius is a beautiful place to live in as well.
Yes,
Indeed.
exactly.
among financial centers, we are the best.
But coming to Mauritius, I think you had given me an input on Mauritius. So if you can say a little more, other than the beauty of your island.
Certainly, Deepak. No, what I wanted to share really is, when you look at the role that financial centers are today playing in the global economy, it's more than just the role of financial centers. The picture is much larger. We are contributing, especially to emerging markets. We are contributing a lot in terms of economic growth. We are contributing a lot in terms of poverty alleviation, job creation. And these are very important roles, that financial centers around the world are today playing. Again, I take the case of Mauritius here, with respect to India, since the early 1990s, when India opened up the economy in 1991. Since then, Mauritius has been used as the stepping stone into India. If you look at the official statistics, you would see that today, on a cumulative basis, Mauritius accounts for around 45% of total FDI that India has actually received over the years. Yes, around over the last 15 years, basically we account for around 45% of the total FDI. We're followed by Singapore and a number of other financial centers. More interestingly now, as Africa is opening up to the world, we see that Mauritius, again because of our geographical positioning, we see that Mauritius is becoming that preferred access center to really tap into the increasingly important African opportunities.
And the expertise has already been built.
Expertise has been built over the last 2-3 decades, I would say. Now, investors are really looking at Mauritius as a trusted platform, for
Is there a competition to Mauritius anywhere in the African territory?
There is, to be frank with you. There is. South Africa themselves are trying to be a financial center for the region, but the problem is, in terms of the fundamentals that I've just explained, security and stability comes foremost. The ease of how you can exit your investment, because it's good to go and invest in a particular country, but how easy it is really to get your money out of that country. That is another very important point. And Mauritius, as a financial center, we offer that exit mechanism as well. We do not have any exchange control, which is very important for any financial centers. There are players, international players. The entire ecosystem is there that has been built and proven and tested over the years. So if you look at the figures again, over the last 2-3 years, as Africa is opening up, out of total FDI, that Africa is welcoming, I would say, and here I'm talking about the entire continent, the 54 countries that there are in the continent. Mauritius accounts for around 36%, as at 2014 figures, 36%, and this trend is upward. It's continuously increasing.
There is another aspect you had mentioned while we were discussing, and I think that is something that we all need to understand. The subject of our debate is about economic development. And one of the important things in the emerging markets is inclusion, financial inclusion. Do you think we are playing as financial centers, other than nice, fancy places to live in and to work, and to provide complex methods of securing transactions? What are we doing for our domestic economies? So Abu Dhabi, for example, and I'll come to Mauritius, but Abu Dhabi, what in terms of your mandate how does it relate to the domestic growth of Abu Dhabi? How does ADGM promote domestic growth in Abu Dhabi? And there is something that you had mentioned earlier. I would like you to please give us some more, make us understand that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. And I think one point to make early on, that a financial center isn't necessarily one organization. It's a country-wide initiative in many cases, or an emirate in this case, where you need input from a wide range of stakeholders. The financial regulator, the courts, the promotional agencies that might be run together, as in the case of the IFC or ADGM, but that isn't necessarily the setup. You have the business community and many sectors outside of financial services. You have the education system. We have spoken about communication, about security, about foreign policy on many levels that play to the attractiveness of a country. But if we look at forum, and as a perhaps instigator of projects with us, with other government stakeholders, and with the private market to support development in financial and other terms on those industries.
Domestically.
Domestically to start with, but I think later on also regionally.
Yeah. What's been the experience in Mauritius, Harvesh, in terms of domestic economic development because of you playing this role of a gateway?
I think it's been a very important driver of economic prosperity within Mauritius. If you look at the way Mauritius has progressed over the years, over the last, since independence, many of you may be aware that Mauritius became an independent country in 1968. Back in those days, we had a GDP per capita around 200 US, with one economic sector in the country being sugarcane. So that was the economy. Graduates. If you ask a young graduate coming out of university in Mauritius where you'd like to go and work, there are primarily two sectors that they always say. It's either financial services or the ICT sector. So these would be just to translate to you that, the kind of contribution that this sector has really brought, the kind of opening that this sector has really brought to the Mauritian economy itself has been very, very much. And it has been a very inclusive approach that we've adopted. Yeah.
So no wonder that there are so many countries now looking at having active financial centers onshore. So we have in India the Gift City, which is being considered, and I think we were supposed to have a guest from the Gift City, but he couldn't make it. We would have loved to understand what would be the mandate for Gift City, but I think one of the...
We were talking about quite a few, and to some extent, I think that brings up the question of how many do we need, and how do they stay competitive? So you've got an interconnected world. That I think it's also good to bring up another point, which is another USP to the financial centers, is that all financial centers are linked up to each other. So imagine that you have firms that come in from London, firms that come in from the US, firms that come in from Bahrain, Oman, Saudi, etc. If it's a bank, the regulator here will want to speak with the regulator, which is the home regulator of the bank that's coming in. So a constant question that we also get is, how many MOUs do you have, and who do you have them with? And the more agreements there is for sharing information, the more easy it is for companies to operate within that free zone, or that financial center. So for the newcomers, it becomes a lot more difficult. And they have to have a USP. Going back to why do you set up a financial center, you have to have a USP. So India, for example, no doubt they need it, because everybody's targeting India from outside of India. Why would you not have your own? China, same thing. If you've got a really oil revenue, for example, and you want to be able to service that industry, again, you've got your own homegrown need. So that would be the recipe for success or not.
Yeah, and looking at, so you brought another interesting aspect. How many do you need? So one of the questions which is, I'm sure, in everyone's mind here, when you look at Martin from ADGM, and we asked Martin this question before lunch as well. Martin, why do we need an ADGM when you have a DIFC? I'm sorry, I'm sure this is something everyone wanted to ask. And I thought I had the professional liberty to ask him this question sitting here. He wouldn't throw me off at the stage. Please, why do we need an ADGM when you have not only the IFC, you've got Qatar Financial Center, and you've also got Bahrain, which is still kicking and alive? Please.
I think we can look at this question, and it's a fair one from two different angles. One is from Abu Dhabi's angle. Why does Abu Dhabi want a financial center? And the other one is from the point of view of the market. From Abu Dhabi's point of view, clearly, there are, and I think we've touched upon almost all of them, a number of positive benefits for an economy in building a financial center, not necessarily the financial center itself, but the help the players of the financial ecosystem can give the development of the economy. So Abu Dhabi has a lot to gain from getting a stronger, strengthening domestic financial services, helping the sovereign wealth funds fulfill their mandate, supporting growth of strong domestic companies, including family-owned businesses, attracting more people, more business to Abu Dhabi, training up local talent, etc. So Abu Dhabi stands to win a lot by supporting financial.
Does it compete in any way with the others?
Well, they're complementing, I would say, and that comes into the second angle, what's the why for the market? And that's up to us to deliver value. And I think it's very important that we, and this is something we have engaged very closely with in the years leading up to the launch of ADGM, and now as we speak to representatives of various segments in financial services, in professional services, and across a whole broad range of other industries, about their, coming back to the two circles, the business opportunities and the platform. Are there enough interesting business opportunities for firms to motivate a presence here? Whether they are already in the region, possibly in another financial center, or looking at the region for the first time. And if so, can we deliver them something else? Can we be better in terms of our legal framework, in terms of the activities we support, in terms of the legal vehicles we offer, the flexibility of setup, the ease of doing business in ADGM? That's all very important questions for us that we discuss with the market here and in the region and internationally every day and try to meet.
So you're very conscious of that, and you're looking at being not just competitive but also complementing what's happening in the region already.
I think that's very important, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that brings us to another challenge, which I thought when we were discussing financial markets, and specifically because we have Harvesh sitting here from Mauritius. India is a huge opportunity with capital going into India, and India itself playing a bigger role in the global economy. Mauritius has been, and then Singapore have been natural partners of the Indian economy. How do you see that shaping up with now regulatory changes in India? We also discussed about the double taxation treaty being, the double taxation agreement and so on with India. Are there challenges over there, and how are we looking at approaching the Indian opportunity, not just from Mauritius angle, but we'll also ask Martin, how does ADGM see vis-a-vis India? How does it see itself vis-a-vis India?
Indeed, indeed. I think I'll take it from two different...
Because that's I think, is a very topical subject here, because that's another thing which is we've been holding to know from you.
Especially about the double taxation agreement.
Yes.
Indeed, indeed. I'll take it from two angles here, Deepak, with your permission. The first is the question that you have just asked to Martin mostly. I'll just add a couple of pointers on that one, and then I'll take the double taxation agreement point separately. The model that Mauritius is adopting as an international financial center is one that is really complementing the offerings of other financial centers, trusted and reliable financial centers, I would say. Over the years, we've developed links, basically, and not later than this year, for example, we signed an MOU with the City of London. There is one that is currently in discussion with the ADGM to link up, Mauritius IFC with the ADGM. Last year, we've linked it up to the DIFC already, where we are currently discussing equivalent status between IFCs. Similarly, with Singapore, with Hong Kong, with around major IFCs around the world, we are developing what we're calling a complementary strategy. Now, what this strategy means is very simple. I take the case of an Indonesian company that may want to go and invest in Africa. Now, Indonesia being right next to Singapore, typically they would go to Singapore as a financial center. Singapore being Singapore is very good for Southeast Asia, but not necessarily for Africa. And this is where Mauritius comes in as the complementing part. You know, we offer what Singapore is not offering in terms of accessibility, market accessibility, in terms of efficiency, be it from a fiscal position or, you know, nearshore position, basically. We offer that then. So what we are then suggesting to the global investors community, for example, the Indonesian investor, is to have a first tier in Singapore as their, you know, trusted financial center. Then they come to Mauritius with the second tier as the financial center for Africa, and then they make the investments into Africa. So this is the complementing strategy that we're developing with major financial centers around the world. And I think this would be very much the future as well. Because all financial centers at the end of the day, they would have USPs, as Sally has mentioned, you know, which are unique to specific regions or specific geographies. In Mauritius here, we're good for Africa, we're good for India, basically. So this is what we can really offer to the world. That was on the first angle. Now, the second angle, India.
Yeah.
Very interesting economy. We've been listening about this since yesterday. Certainly a lot of things happening as well. But one of the main advantages of Mauritius, I would say, with respect to the Indian economy, is the cultural linkage that actually binds both our countries. At the highest level, be it, you know, in terms of political levels, business levels, or institutional levels, there is an excellent entente, I would say, an excellent rapport that exists basically between our political masters, business leaders, basically with Indian political masters and business leaders. Over this year, and as I speak to you currently, our Prime Minister, the Mauritian Prime Minister, is currently leading a delegation in India. So there is constant dialogue going on, really, between India and Mauritius as well. And, you know, one of the things that was brought to our attention, basically, was the fact that our double taxation agreement that was signed with India, you know, back in 1983, for those of you who do not know, but the India-Mauritius double taxation agreement was actually negotiated in 1981 and signed in 1983. Back in those days, India was not even open, you know, as an economy. It's only in 1991 that the DTA came in use, you know, with the opening up of the Indian economy. And since it has contributed in its own manner to the betterment of India in terms of attracting FDI. But then we also need to realize that there are global developments happening around the world, you know, be it in terms of the OECD developments, be it in terms of BEPS, you know, the base erosion and profit shifting system that is coming into place, in terms of common reporting standards. A lot of new developments are happening around the world. So the Indian government approached the Mauritian government saying that, you know, keeping the very friendly attitude that there is, you know, between both countries, it is important for us after, you know, nearly 30 years of existence of a bilateral treaty that was signed, it is important for us to actually review it, to relook at it from a fresh angle. And Mauritius, as a financial center that has always kept it very important, you know, on its list to be in compliance with international best norms and practices, we said, yes, let's discuss. India has the plan, as all other countries in the world has the plan, to move from residency-based system of taxation to more of a source-based systems of taxation, okay? And this had to be reflected in the DTA. That was the first point of concern, I would say, of India.
What does this mean? This means whether
This
Indian...
means, I give you a very simple example. For example, a Mauritian company that is currently investing in India, when it is exiting that investment, okay, that exit of the investment, the capital gains that arises on the exit of the investment, under the current treaty, okay, under the current treaty, that gain is only taxable in Mauritius, okay? Now, under the new treaty that would be applicable as from next year onwards, that gain would typically not be taxable in Mauritius, but rather in India. But we, again, based on the cultural ties, based on the very friendly attitude that there exists between our two countries, Mauritius has been given a special treatment We are the only financial center right now in the world which actually has negotiated a phasing out of that benefit of capital gains transaction. So basically what happens is that up till next year, whoever is using Mauritius as an investment center to go and invest into India, it gets treated the same way. So all capital gains will be taxed in Mauritius, okay? Then starting next year onwards, up till 2019, basically, what we have agreed with the Indian government is that the capital gains arising after 2017, for new structures being formed after